Hi, this is Suzanne in Ohio. I have a little follow-up video today. Um, when we worked on our bird kits the last time, we were talking about how to enhance the image before you collage on it or embroidery on it. So I got off on a little foray of exploring more about the crayons than I had ever done before. So that's what this little short video is about. It's about the things that I've learned and some helpful hints for you if you're going to put some crayon on fabric. Um, the first thing is to say I work on always a foundation on the back of my pieces when I'm embroidering. But for the coloring part, you want to do that before you attach it to your foundation. So that's why this looks like this. I have a very thin piece of Pellon back here and some muslin and some white muslin. And those three layers are my foundation, and when I embroidery all the way through those. And I'll show you here the back side of my stitches. And that is because it really helps the way your stitches look on the front. Plus, if you want to do something, a single image like this, then you'll be able to cut it out and use it as an applique on any other kind of piece that you're working on. So, wait just a minute while I get the kitty off of. And here's our little friend, Remy. Hey, Remy, say hi. Oh, he's a doll baby. Great big ball of fur, but he loves to be up here when I'm on the working at my desk or on the computer. Okay, so where were we? This is, okay, we looked at this, and as you can see, this is crayon. All the coloring that you see, minus the embroidery stitches, is crayon. Now, let me see if I can bring this down just a little bit. This camera won't always respond to me. Nope, it's not going to move. I'll bring it up here so you can see it a little bit better. I did outline everything, and I did some shading with my crayons. And the more you play with them, the funner it gets. If you enjoyed coloring as a child, you will love this, and you can combine it with any of your fabric arts. It can be child geared, or it can be very sophisticated like a fine arts piece. So we looked at this in the last video, and I wanted you to see it finished. And we also looked at this one. And this one was Inktense and crayon. And I did the bird mostly on camera, I believe, with Inktense. The rose hips are Inktense, the leaves, but the picture itself, the teapot itself, is crayon. So I wanted you to see how you can shade with that. It's lovely. And depending on what color you choose for the outline, it just comes alive as you're stitching. You will love it. So, again, you're working on a single piece of fabric, and if you look at any other tutorials online, they suggest a piece of sandpaper, and we talked that over. And I did lay mine on the sandpaper, but I found out, here's my first helpful hint. I like to iron my fabric to the shiny side of freezer paper while I'm coloring on it. That worked much better for me than the sandpaper thing. Okay, so I completed both of those. If you go back and look at the other video, you'll see what they looked like before we even started. And then I decided to do another drawing, and I drew out this little bunny and the strawberries, and I wanted to see how much saturation I could get for the strawberry and the leaves. And here's my next helpful hint. It was hard to get a bright strawberry without making it look dark. And that's because of the pigment in the crayons. And that's just a little tidbit of information about the crayons. They work wonderful, but pure red was not really red enough. And so I had to add some brick red and burgundy and different things like that. And it probably got it just a little too dark. But that was my third attempt in this experiment. All right, and then I decided to tackle something a little bit bigger. So I drew up this design, and I wanted to see what a large space would look like. And I think it just worked wonderful. I'm real happy with this design. And by the way, all these designs will be on my Etsy site. And I can only give you designs right now already printed on fabric. I'm having an issue with my Etsy site. I can't get into, well, you don't even want to know all that. It's complicated for those of you that don't care. But if you want me to print you any of these designs on a piece of fabric, they'll be on my Etsy site as already ready to stitch. So what did I learn about this one? Well, first of all, you can see the basting really well in this one. I want to mention that because I've got an upcoming video about the bird kits, and we're going to baste the proper way. It looks like a mismatch of junk here, but I've got it as secure as I can. And it's a certain way you put in the stitch to keep these 3 layers together and keep them from scooting while you're embroidering. So now about working directly on the fabric. I'll use this one as an example. If you watch other videos, you will see that they tell you to color all the space in your design with a white crayon first. And I've tried that. I didn't see it was doing anything any different. And then I realized what the difference was. When I color my lightest shade first. And in essence, I'm putting down the first layer of wax, which helps to fill in the fibers of the fabric and make the next color you put on it smooth out very nice. So I color with my lightest crayon first, something almost not visible in a way, and then when I start adding my other layers, it just goes on beautiful. Also, what I did was I kept this little travel iron right beside me on a medium heat, medium only. It doesn't need to be super hot. And I have an old clipboard, and I just laid it on my clipboard and ironed it every now and then. And what I discovered was even if you heat up the fabric just a little bit and then color on it, the crayon melts right into it. I did the lift-off technique. First, I set the color with parchment on top of this, on top of these that are finished. And then I did this one too. I'm getting ahead of myself. I set the color with parchment paper on top of it. And then I did the paper towel. I got no lift-off whatsoever. And I was sharing this with one of my sewing friends. And she went, "Ooh, oh, all that crayon in your fabric. What's that going to do to your needle?" And I said, well, it really, excuse me. Got a drink. It really just acts like beeswax. And if you've done a lot of sewing, you probably have a chunk of beeswax to run your thread through. I also use a product that's silicone. It's called thread conditioner. And I dip my needle right in that if I'm going through on some of my other collages. I get layers and layers of fabric buildup. So between either something like a silicone or a beeswax, that helps with your sewing, and it keeps your thread from wearing out as you're pulling it through time and time again. So I told her, I said, the needle slides through this just like butter. Um, and just a little comment on needles. Um, for something that has this much intricate detail to it, get yourself a sharp needle. Don't necessarily buy an embroidery needle just because it says embroidery. Some of the small in-betweens and sharps, and get the skinniest, sharpest needle with an elongated eye. And I have a very small, sharp needle, and I can get 3 strands of floss in that needle. And that way my needle goes down exactly where I want it to, because I can put that little point anywhere. And I can just have a lot of control over where my thread goes. Just a couple other comments. Let's see, what was I going to tell you? Oh, on this one, if you can notice, I did a chain stitch around the apple leaves. And that's because the chain stitch ends up kind of looking serrated around the edge. And I just can't get this camera to focus. And then I switched off colors. On the one side of the leaf is dark thread, on the other a lighter thread, to give all that illusion of shading and shadow. And as far as embroidery goes, I might just make another video about the techniques for that. If you look at I don't know if you can see it on camera, but in real life, this coffee pot is a combination of blue and periwinkle, which has a little bit of purple to it. And in real life, it looks more purple than I can see the camera is showing you. But when I went around the edge of this, excuse me, I did 3 different strands of color for my outline. And I always tried to do 2 dark and 1 lighter. And what happens is the light strand shows up every now and then and looks like highlights. And it's a beautiful effect, so you might want to consider that. All right, this piece is still in progress. You can see there's many edges that I haven't done yet. I'm working on the apples right now, and I will put the red and orange thread on those pretty soon and bring them to life. And then I'll go around this wooden spoon, and it's just a lovely piece. I'm having a lot of fun, but I'll tell you what, I can get lost in this and off onto some little foray la-la land, and I can stitch for hours. And that's how I rest, and that's my therapy. So, one more look at all these designs, just to say they are or will be on my Etsy site as a piece of fabric with the image drawn right on. And I use a micron pen for that. So here's what your fabric will look like. The design will look like before you even start. So that one will be on my Etsy site. And there's the mushroom. Did I even show you the mushrooms? Oh, for heaven's sakes. I forgot to show you what that looked like finished. Let me see if I can find it. You know what happens when you're working on more than one project at a time. You've got stuff laying everywhere. Here they are. So we looked at these in the first video about adding color. And what I did was 2 samples. I'm working on the second one. I did an experiment. And what in the world just happened to my lighting? Okay, is it the sun? Heaven's sakes, I don't know what just happened. But this one has no foundational wax on it at all. And you can see the colors are gorgeous. And I'm just beginning to stitch this one. I put a foundational wax on this before I started. And really, I thought it was too much. The design is okay. I'll find something to use that on, something that's going outside, in the weather or draw moisture, because I put a lot of wax on that fabric before I even added the crayon. But here is just simply my technique where I start with my lighter color first. All right, so the mushroom will also be on the Etsy site as a pre-printed piece of fabric. Actually, I'm going to hand draw them on. And there's teapot number 1 and number 2. All right, so that's all my helpful hints and a second look at coloring with crayon on fabric. I'm telling you, it's just delightful. Now, of course, the ink tints is fabulous too, but not everybody has ink tints. It's a little bit more tricky to handle if you're more artistic and you want to do that, or especially if you want a looser, more painterly look. Yes, ink tints. But the rest of it, this crayon just works beautiful. And I don't know if you can see on here or not, but I even added 2 or 3 different colors in that rabbit. First, it was extremely light gray, and then a darker gray, and then 2 different shades of soft brown. And up close, it does make a difference. From a distance, not so much. But it's a fun technique to test your artistic skills. All right, thank you for watching this short video. I hope you are doing something creative. If you've never tried fabric and crayon together, please get a little project and play with it. It is just delightful. And then do something simple like one big apple or a pear or a mushroom or something like that, and just do it as a tiny little wall hanging. Would be delightful. Make something small enough to fit in a greeting card and send it to a friend. All right, have a wonderful creative day, and I'll be back soon. Thank you for watching. Bye.